Hello, welcome to Entrepreneurial Live Interviews with Connie Fuksa. I am Connie Fuksa, and I am a business coach, and I work with businesses and entrepreneurs, small business owners, to help them build really strong teams and also to help them dig out the information that's in their head that people want to know about. They have so much information in there, and I help them share those golden nuggets with the potential customers that they have. And what I'm doing through this entrepreneurial series is I'm trying to share with you guys these amazing people out there that have just decided that there was something they felt very strongly about, or they saw an opportunity and they wanted to grow that into a business and help other people fix other people's pain points. And today, you guys, I just can't wait to let you hear all of this great energy and knowledge from this amazing lady. Irina Withmer is a lady who is a brand strategist, and I'm just going to let her tell you all about herself because I am just thrilled to share her with you guys. So, Irina, thank you so much for being on with me today.
Thank you so much, Connie, for inviting me here today. What a fantastic project. I love that you share stories of other entrepreneurs and their successes and, everything along the way.
Yep, that's what it's all about. Is I really want to share your story with the audiences that are out there, because I think there's so much value in this for new people that might want to start a business, but also because sharing your business is so important to try to do that with each other and help each other grow. So that's really what it's all about. And I absolutely love this. So Irina, start by telling us who you are. I mean, obviously you have a really amazing, beautiful accent. So tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about your background and tell us what you're doing now and how you got into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best way to start my story is to quote Steve Jobs, who said that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. And that's exactly how it worked for me. So for the majority of my life, things I did, they didn't look connected. They looked kind of random. At some points, they didn't look like they made sense. But in the end, all of them tied perfectly, all of those dots. So back in time when I was a teenager and I needed to figure out what to do in my life, I knew two things. I knew that I loved working with people, and I loved the idea, the feeling of using my skills, my personality, my virtues, and being in charge of different processes. However, back then, I couldn't even think of starting my own business. I mean, it's kind of like a given, right? You finish school, you graduate from university, then you go into corporate world. So in my case, it was corporate Russia.
Okay.
So I got a bachelor's degree in psychology of management, and I started working in a call center. And shortly after, I got promoted to be a supervisor. So I did all sorts of fabulous things. I was conducting interviews. I was teaching and training new employees. I was creating and doing different tasks every week. I was like overlooking the whole work of the department throughout the day, and I loved it. After a while, I felt the need, I felt a big interest in going deeper into the recruiting process. So I accepted an offer from this really cool recruiting agency and stayed with them for a while. So those two things really helped me expand my people skills. And I loved it all. I loved working with people. I loved being in charge of different processes. What I did not love, however, is that the corporate job, it doesn't allow you as much variety, it doesn't give you as much challenge. And I'm the kind of person who always needs an endless growth to be happy and satisfied. So, and that's when I guess my first pivot had to happen. And as many people in life, at some point, I had no idea what to do. I was lost. So I actually got a beautiful lesson out of it, because I waited before making that transition. I was receiving many signs that I needed to go forward. I needed to start figuring it out. And I didn't listen for a while. So it didn't go as well. I started getting louder signs, you know how it happens, like health-wise and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the beautiful lesson that I got out of it, that helps me and my clients, that oftentimes we tell ourselves, after this thing happens, then I can do that thing.
Okay.
Does it sound familiar?
Yeah, of course.
Like, after I build this perfect, beautiful website, then I can start going networking and, you know, talking to people. Or after I start getting new clients, then I can hire a business coach or a brand strategist. But it doesn't work that way, right?
Right. We think we need all the pieces together before we can move forward.
Yeah. So in my case, I had a renovation going in my apartment, and I was like, after the renovation is done, then I'll start looking for a new job and start figuring out what to do. And of course, the renovation kept going and going and being rescheduled. So that's not the case. If you get the signs, just go for it. That now is the time, no matter what you think is preventing you from that. So I was lost. I didn't know what to do. So as a temporary solution, I accepted this job from a language center. Again, as an administrator, being in charge of different processes, communicating with people all the time. And as a bonus, with that job came the opportunity to attend their evening classes. And that's how I learned and fell in love with English language.
Oh, wow. Neat.
So after a while, I felt this deep need to teach other people. So I started my second degree in languages. And after a while, I became a full-time English tutor. I had a full schedule, full of students. And yet I was in charge of my schedule. And I was in charge of how to teach people, how to do it well, and how to tweak every single lesson for every single person. I loved that fact. So I kept practicing English online, and that's how I met my future husband, who is actually in the Navy, and at that moment he was in Africa on a deployment. That's just crazy story. But long story short, 5 years ago, we got married and I moved to America. So when I tell my story, usually I just joke and I say, well, when I moved here, it didn't look like a great idea to keep teaching English here. That's my joke for my speaking presentations, because I need to keep the story short to take the most time for the educational part of my talks about branding. But that's actually not entirely true, because I know a lot of people, well, not a lot, some people who teach English as a second language, who are not native speakers. They do a fantastic job in those language centers for immigrants, and they make a huge difference. So I could continue doing that. But another great lesson that I got out of it is that sometimes you develop some skill or some virtue, not as the plan, but as a part of the plan.
Nice. Wow, this is just so interesting. I mean, as you said, all of these different pieces leading up to the person you are now, it's so interesting. And this is really a true story for all of us. It's just most of us, as you so well put from the quote from Steve Jobs, don't always look backwards to see how those pieces went together to being who you are here today. So this is really fascinating because I think it really speaks to what we're talking about. There's so much development that goes into who you are, and you just don't always realize that you're creating these part of this roadmap and each of these steps. go into that. So do continue your story. It's really good. I love it.
Yeah. So basically, trust the journey, right? And
That's the
sometimes
journey, right?
it's so hard to do it yourself, and you do need that support system. But so in my case, I just moved to America, and once again in my life, I didn't know what to do. I knew I loved working with people. I knew I loved business processes. I loved photography as well. And I loved training and teaching. I just needed a new subject. So after I came across branding, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to engage all of my prior experience, all of my skills and interests. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Or that's how I
That is
got.
so exciting. I mean, it's what's interesting is you also bring up this concept that we've talked about several times with entrepreneurs that you have this piece of energy or pieces of energy inside of you, and you know that those things are most important in your toolbox. And it doesn't really matter what the job is that you're doing, you pull on those pieces or those resources no matter what position you're in. So I mean, just the versatility that you've gone through and how you've used those skills in each of those particular areas is very interesting. And now, I mean, somebody to go from being in the administrative skills to recruiting to an English teacher to now a branding and photographer. So tell us a little bit about that business so we can understand what you do and to share your business, obviously, with everybody out there. Tell us a little bit about your current business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a brand strategist and a brand photographer, and there are a lot of things that I do for my clients. So there are a lot of hows, but what's of most interest to people is what I can do for them. And that's a common mistake that I see in marketing process. People start talking about hows, like how they do something.
Yeah.
When in fact, what people care about is what you can do for them as the end goal. And as my end goal, I help purposeful entrepreneurs grow their business with clarity, confidence, and heart.
Nice, nice. And, being personally someone who knows you, the photography piece is really a neat, interesting piece to that because you actually help people discover their real interest and put those into a very relatable piece of format that people can share. So it's really kind of interesting, or it's really very interesting. So let's talk about the entrepreneurial side a little bit more, because what I wanted to understand. So how long have you been doing your current branding business, did you say?
So when I moved to America 5 years ago, that's when I started the whole process. I knew I loved photography. I didn't have that skill developed to the fullest at that moment. So for a while, I just dived into that. And it made the perfect sense for the branding process. Now for my clients, eventually when all the dots got connected, because there is a lot of visual in branding. And knowing photography, understanding photography, and having the eye, right? The eye that also had to be trained at some point in terms of creativity and visual approach. That really helps me just go on social media and see the whole picture and tie it to the business, to the person. However, a lot of people think that branding is mostly your visuals. When in fact, it's quite the opposite. Branding is more about your internal work, about what you do on the back end, rather than what people end up seeing on the front end. And branding process starts from you actually getting to know yourself. I know it sounds funny, it might sound unusual, but that's how it is.
Yeah, very interesting. So let's talk about your entrepreneurial side for a minute, because, obviously you came to America, you had to figure out what you wanted to do. You had all these different skill sets, but you basically said, this is something different I want to try. So when you decided to do this, tell us about some of the obstacles which you faced probably a little bit differently even than a typical entrepreneur, being in a whole nother world, starting a brand new business and things you needed to know. Because I know you pointed out at one point early on in our conversation that, not to wait till all the pieces were in place, make sure you have, the foundation, and then, get going, just get started. So tell us a little bit about the obstacles you struggled with as an entrepreneur, and also as a new entrepreneur in a brand new country, which obviously was very different.
Yeah, absolutely. What a wonderful question. All the obstacles that I've gone through actually helped me relate to my clients well. So that was so helpful in the end. And one of those obstacles was me being anxious to see results in my business. And that might sound very familiar to you, Connie.
Absolutely.
When I start working with my clients, oftentimes I hear, I want it now. I want it done. I want it now. I'm anxious. I just need a few clients to keep my business going. I need it now. And there's a lot of now. So
yeah, unfortunately, that's a lot of our society too right now.
Yeah. So there is a lot of fast growth that people want to have, when in fact, if you grow slower, you grow deeper roots.
And
that's
very powerful.
Very powerful. And that's what I had to learn. So for a while there, I was one of those people. So I understand them so well, because I went through that.
Yeah.
For a while, I worked with no days off. I was anxious. Yeah. And I was doing all those busy things that led me pretty much nowhere. Of course, at some point, I needed to figure things out and, learn this and that. But at some point, you need to get intentional about what you do. It's better you do 3 things each day that really give you that forward movement, rather than keeping yourself busy whole day, driving yourself crazy, hustling, and not getting the results that you want.
Gosh, I love this. This is the first time we've had this conversation in this series, but I love this concept of the busy work, if you want to call it. You're spinning, you're doing things, you think that you're doing things to advance your business, but you need to have something, at least one thing. You say at least 3 things, which I love. 3 things that are productive, money generating activities, and not just spinning in the busy work of stuff. So I love that. And having maybe some goals set up each day to accomplish what those 3 things are. So I think that's really important, because especially when you're first starting out, there's so many things being thrown at you, or you're throwing at yourself, and you want to get it all done. So I love these analogies that you're bringing on, because it's so fresh, but it's so accurate, and people just don't think about all of these things. Yeah, we want to jump in and get started, but you also have to have a little bit of a roadmap. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's really some really cool insight.
Yeah, and I'd love to add to that at some point, many entrepreneurs, they try to do a little bit of everything. They're anxious. They have this fear of missing out. So they're trying to do a little bit of everything just in case.
Right.
And at some point, they start learning that it's better to focus on something, one, as your main strategy, and be consistent with that every single day.
Right.
But again, it's so hard to stay on it by yourself without that support, by a mentor, a support group. And what happens, they try a strategy for a couple weeks and it doesn't give the results that they want, and they're like, that might not be the right strategy for me. Then somebody else out there does XYZ. Let me try that. That must be the strategy that will work. Right. And then it repeats again.
For everybody, the same thing. So let me pause for a second. Anne-Marie Tolman says, hi, Irina. Good to see you. She just got one. Yep. Say hey. So I like some of these concepts that you just talked about, because it is very much a theme similar as we're talking to different entrepreneurs. But I love how you've dug into this, because being consistent is so very, very, very important. And when you first start out, you don't know exactly what you want to do. And even if you've been doing this for a long time, things change and you have to change the way that you're doing things. So being consistent with your, your method, your methodology, your processes, your message is really important here, coming from our brand strategist. Absolutely powerful stuff. And then the other piece I really wanted to bring up is you talked about a piece that I love to hear entrepreneurs talk about, because we all have the same theory about this, is having support systems. So talk a little bit more about that. Who would you consider those support systems? How do you figure out what that is? And how did you get to the point where you knew that was okay to ask somebody for that help?
Oh, I've had mentors my entire life. Sometimes one or two, or I mean, sometimes more than one at the same time, depending on my needs. I would go to this person or that person, and I would stay with each of those mentors for a while until I felt that I've outgrown them.
Yeah.
So
how did you reach out to somebody, and how did you determine you wanted to have somebody as a mentor? What was that parameter? How did you figure that out?
when they talked about things that I didn't fully have expanded, but they did, and they talked about it, and they gave value, and what they shared helped, and I wanted more.
Yeah. And so, a lot of times we talk about people being intimidated to ask somebody who maybe has more, who's doing more, ask for help. And tell us how you felt about that. Like, I mean, obviously you looked at this person and said, oh, they have something I want. I really want to get more information. How did you approach them to ask them for help?
It just happened naturally. And I mean, those are all the people that have it as a job, right? So I would just see a class and sign up for a class or something. By that time, we would already have ongoing relationships. So
Nice.
It would just happen naturally. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I know a lot of people in this entrepreneurial world are afraid to reach out to people and ask for help because, and a lot of times people feel intimidated or maybe that what someone else might think about them asking for help. And so that's why I love this concept so much, because it's not, and you reinforce that in this conversation as well, it's not somewhere to feel concerned about. If you don't ask for help, then there's a problem. You need to, everybody's been through, somebody who's done it for a little bit longer and you admire, they've done it and they've figured it out. So they're more than willing to help you in 90% of the cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes it's important to remember that we're not doing it just for ourselves. We're doing it for our clients.
Right.
I'm doing it for my clients. I'm always growing. I'm doing it for them. Everybody probably has heard every coach needs a coach. Every therapist needs a therapist, right? Every strategist needs a strategist. And I'm doing it for them because all of the majority of my clients, they come from different industries. They're at different levels. I always need to be up to date with social media and other things we're talking about. So that's why having my own business works for me so perfectly, because I don't have that box that I had in the corporate world. I'm always growing, and I love it, and I'm growing for them.
That is such an amazing statement. So, you're growing and you're constantly learning and you're constantly reaching out to other people to get more information for your clients. I love that. It's not just the personal growth, which is very important, but in order to grow your business, you have to be willing to ask for help. And I just love that concept. So, talk to me for a minute when somebody first finds out what you do for a living. What is the first question, 2 questions, 3 questions? What do people ask you about that? What is the most common theme about what people ask you about what you do?
Well, a lot of people think that it's about your visuals.
Mm-hmm.
They think branding is what you see eventually. However, it is not. So what's the use of putting in place a new strategy? Let's say creating that perfect brand piece. If then you start getting more calls from your potential clients, but you stay the same, you haven't figured out that mindset piece, right? Okay. And now you get more inquiries, but you can't process them to get more clients. So it's not only about the strategy. It's not just about the action. It's always mindset plus action that we do. And that's sometimes that I need to communicate.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. That's really interesting too, because it really speaks to how you dig in and find out what people need to know in order for you to be able to help them. So talk to us for a few minutes about your, I like to call it superpower. What do you feel like is your strength when you're talking about brand strategies, and what is your, even if it's not in your business, just your personality, what is your superpower? What do you feel like is the really great quality? And I love this because it's sort of turning the tables on you, because you asked this a couple weeks ago in your group, and I actually had to think about it for myself for a little bit. So I know you had to know what the answer was because you asked it. So tell us what your superpower is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my superpower comes from why I'm here and what I'm here for. And what I'm here for is help other people reach their highest potential. And it's not just me who came up with that. It's the message that I received. So, and I live into that. So all the superpowers or superpower that I have are in alignment with that. And I think in my case, it's being able to talk to people dig deep into what's going on. So when we create the strategy, we're not addressing the surface level. We're addressing this. Where's the camera? We're addressing this level. And once you figure out this level, this goes away by itself.
Nice. So who the real person is, what your superpower is figuring out who those real people are too.
Yeah, figuring out what the real issue is that needs to be addressed rather than what they think needs to be addressed. For example, some people might say, oh, I hate social media. But why? I hate social media is here. Yeah. And 10 people will have 10 different reasons here. And I need to address this reason to fix this. Yeah. How am I going to create branding for a person who hates social media if I don't address the underlying issue?
Right. Very good. I love it. So if you had some advice for somebody getting ready to start out in business, or who may be really just stuck on a curb, what would that be? Give us some of your, an entrepreneurial branding, not even branding, an entrepreneurial piece of advice to somebody starting out or somebody who's stuck.
Oh, I love it. Thanks for asking it. So I always tell my clients, don't forget to have fun. You are allowed to build your business with ease and fun and joy, and just enjoy it. That's why you started your own thing. You don't have to feel exhausted all the time and desperate. And a big part of that comes from it's okay to not be alone. It's actually so it's such a, this feeling when you're trying to build your business all by yourself, you feel alone and no support. It's okay to not build it just by yourself. It's okay to have that support system to expand and learn skills and virtues that you need to have.
I love this. One of the questions I usually ask, and you already brought up your answer, so I didn't really bring this up, but this sort of circles around to that. Having fun in what you're doing is ultimately at the end of, what sets you on fire? What really just makes you feel like, glow when you do what you're doing? And, you talked about it earlier when connecting the dots, but this speaks so much to that. When you decide to take this step, it's not easy. There's a lot of work involved, and there's a lot of things you're going to do that you never even knew were going to be part of this job. But at the end of the day, having fun and enjoying what you're doing cancels all of that out, meaning it makes all of those other pieces really worth it. And it makes it okay to have to work a little bit longer hours some days or get up a little bit early some days, because it's just, this is what you want to do. You're having so much fun with it. So I love that, how you came around full circle. And no one said that, but that's exactly where it comes to around. So I really appreciate you sharing that. That's really good stuff. Tell me, I'm stumbling today. I don't know why. tell me, do you have any kinds of programs, specials, things, something going on that you're working on that you want people to know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a free interactive workbook, and I'm going to include a direct link to download it in the comments under this video. For people, it's called a Target Market: Three
Okay.
Common Mistakes That Lose Your Clients. And
Ooh,
trust me,
that too.
you want to take a look of that, because there is so much misconception about that. So many people that work with everybody, work with women, work with parents, work with first-time home buyers, and so on. But none of those is a target market. It's not narrow enough. So you wanna take a look. I'm not gonna go into the details, but that's the free workbook. I'm gonna include it in the comment. Also, I have 5 complimentary visual brand analysis calls to give to people who watched this live video, to the first 5 entrepreneurs. So I will just go and I'll look at your social media, and you'll walk away with 3 tips that you can tweak in your business to start getting more clients. So I'll include the link for that, and you can learn more about that. That's 5 complimentary calls. And also, I would love to see everybody in my group, Purposeful Entrepreneurs, and I'll include the link for that as well.
That Purposeful Entrepreneurs is a powerful group that you really, if you're watching or you even on the replay, you've got to be involved in, because Irina shares so much information and there's so many people interacting, helping each other out. So it's a great place for sharing, for questions, mentoring, a really great place. So I appreciate you doing that. And wow, so much free stuff. I really appreciate you sharing all that too. That's really fantastic. I just can't tell you enough how awesome this has been. Please tell everybody how they can reach you. I'm sure it'll probably be in the links, but if you wouldn't mind also sharing some of the areas that they can reach you, websites and social media pages, how to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's irinawithmer.com. It's my website. On Facebook, it's my business page, Empowered Brands by Irina. But you'll see more stuff and more interaction in Purposeful Entrepreneurs. We're having a lot of conversations that help you grow your business with clarity, confidence, and heart. So yeah, check out all those places.
Excellent. Well, it has been more than a pleasure to speak with you today, to get all of this really good information. I have so many good nuggets that we'll be sharing going forward. Guys, I want you to know that, as I've said in all of our interviews, I save the interview on my YouTube channel, so you can go there and subscribe to make sure you don't miss any of the interviews we're doing. I will repost this tomorrow on my Facebook page. Once we save it, I will tag Irina and she'll be able to share it everywhere. It'll be in my LinkedIn probably in a couple of days, and she will be sharing it on her LinkedIn as well. So anytime you want to go back and grab any of these pieces, obviously she has all kinds of good stuff that she wants to share with us. So definitely interact with her. She's going to help you build that business. And let's see, Joni Watt said, hi, ladies. Karen Kroll said, great interview, ladies. Hugs to you all. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Irina, thank you so much for your time today.
Connie, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. It's been my pleasure. I really enjoyed talking to you and sharing your story. So you guys tune in over the next couple of days. We have plenty more interviews coming up. And again, I told you how we would reshare them. If you want to reach out to me for more information, ConnieFuksa.com. And I thank you so much for your time. You guys have a great rest of the day.
Bye.